You may be seated. Proceedings are now resumed.
Administration of oaths or affirmations.
None.
Reading by the Honourable Speaker of messages and announcements.
None.
Presentation of petitions.
None.
Presentation of papers and of reports. Report of the Standing Business Committee, fourth meeting of the 2022-2023 session of the Cayman Islands Parliament, to be laid on the table by the Chairman of the Standing Business Committee, the Honourable Premier, Minister of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency and Finance and Economic Development.
The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to seek your permission to lay on the table of this Honourable House the report of the Standing Business Committee for the fourth meeting of the 22-23 session of the Cayman Islands Parliament.
Does the Honourable Premier wish to speak thereto?
No, thank you, Madam Speaker.
Cayman Islands Development Bank Annual Report for the year ended December 31, 2022. To be laid on the table by the Honourable Premier, Minister of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency and Finance and Economic Development.
The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to seek your permission to lay on the table of this Honourable House the annual report of the Cayman Islands Development Bank for the year ended 31st December 2022.
Does the Honourable Premier wish to speak thereto?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just briefly, Madam Speaker, the Office of the Auditor General has issued an unqualified opinion in respect of the finances of the CIDB, as it is typically referred, with an emphasis of matter on the financial statements for the 2022 financial year. Madam Speaker, the emphasis of matter, which does not change the unqualified nature of the opinion, is due to the CIDB being significantly reliant on continued government support from the proceeds of capital injections and services in order to meet its obligations and to sustain its operational expenditures. In addition, Madam Speaker, 25.7% or 5.8, the equivalent of 5.8 million, excluding allowances for credit losses, of the overall loan portfolio of the CIDB is or remains impaired. Madam Speaker, during the 2022 financial year, the CIDB approved 76 new loans, inclusive of restructures and existing loan disbursements totaling 7.3 million. As at 31st December 2022, the CIDB's loan portfolio stood at 22.8 million prior to a loan loss provision of 0.0113 million. This represents a net increase of 33% when compared to the loan portfolio for the prior year ended 31st December 2021. As disclosed in Note 6 to the financial statements, the majority of the loan portfolio comprised of mortgages being 13 million, business loans being 2.2 million, student loans being 1.6 million, and debt consolidation loans being 2.3 million. Madam Speaker, delinquent loans continued to decrease and fell to 5.8 million, as noted earlier in terms of impairment as of 31st December 2022. And this compared to 6 million from the previous year. Madam Speaker, as at December 31st, 2022, the total assets of CIDB stood at 39.4 million, of which 15.8 million was comprised of cash and fixed deposits. Overall, total liabilities decreased by 11.6 million, primarily due to a decrease in the funds held for government scholarship disbursements and a decrease in the semi-annual payments of 4.5 million on the bond with First Caribbean Bank. The bond will be repaid during the 2023 financial year, leaving the bank with no debt. And I can confirm that as of this point in time, that bond has indeed been fully repaid. So CIDB is now debt-free. CIDB incurred a net loss of 0.8 million after earning 1.4 million in net income from operations and incurring 2.2 million in administrative expenses during the period leading up to 31st December 22. There are no known contingent liabilities for the period. Madam Speaker, I'd like to take the opportunity to express our gratitude to the Board of Directors and management of CIDB for their assistance and support in managing the affairs of CIDB during the period under review. Thank you very much.
Cayman Islands National Insurance Company Annual Report 2022. Fiscal year ended 31 December 2022. Opening doors to wellness for our members. To be laid on the table by the Honourable Premier, Minister of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency and Finance and Economic Development.
The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to seek your permission to lay on the table of this Honourable Parliament the annual report of the Cayman Islands National Insurance Company, commonly referred to as Synico, for the year ended 31st December 2022.
Does the Honourable Premier wish to speak thereto?
Just briefly, Madam Speaker, thank you for permission to lay the report. Madam Speaker, the Office of the Auditor General issued an unqualified opinion on the financial statements of Synico for the 2022 financial year. During the 12-month period ending 31st December of 22, Synico comprised, in terms of personnel, 45 staff members, of which 6 were at the senior management level. At the end of the 22 financial year, the average number of covered lives that Synico insured totaled 16,935, which was an increase from the prior year by 3%. The indigent and the pensioners groups realized the largest increases over the prior year, with growth rates of 16% and 3% respectively. The indigent group also had the highest growth versus budget. The Seafarers and Veterans group showed a slight decrease of 1% to budget and the prior year. Madam Speaker, as at 31st December 2022, Synico had earned 130.6 million in total income for the period, the majority of which was derived from premium income from civil service, or for civil servants. Madam Speaker, Synico incurred 119.6 million in total expenses, of which 114.7 million, or 96%, was for the payment of incurred claims, which are essentially the health benefits paid under the insurance plans that Synico administers. Total expenses also comprised of 0.25 million in contributions to the segregated insurance fund, 1 million for claim administration fees or third-party administrators' fees, and 6.2 million for the administration expenses that Synico incurred in order to operate the company's office including personnel costs, rent, depreciation, and audit and actuary fees. With the exception of USA-related claims, all claims payment functions were performed locally, which improved the claim paid turnaround times to the benefit of members and providers. In 2022, total claims processed increased by 19% due to the higher utilization. In 2022, Synico processed 70% of the claims received within 15 days of the request, compared with 91% last year. On average, all claims were processed within 22 days, well within the minimum required 30 days. Madam Speaker, as at 31st December 22, Synico recorded a net income of 11 million compared to the prior year of 1.4 million. The net income was due to significantly lower than anticipated claims, unfavorable reinsurance experiences and expenses. At the 2022 financial year, the total assets of Synico was 65.1 million, while total liabilities was 23.1 million. Madam Speaker, for clarity, the audited financial position of Synico reflects a clean audit report, and therefore its financial statements are regarded as reasonably reliable, or it would be reasonable to rely upon them as being accurate. Madam Speaker, I want to take the opportunity to express our gratitude to the Board of Directors and management of Synico for their assistance and good work during the management period. Obviously, there are challenges from time to time, and they continue to strive to deliver the best services to their customers. And we thank them for their efforts. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Ministry of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency, Cayman Islands Government, 2021 Annual Report. To be laid on the table by the Honourable Premier, Minister of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency and Finance and Economic Development.
The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to seek your permission to lay on the table of this Honourable House the annual report for the Ministry of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency for the year ended 2021.
Does the Premier wish to speak there too?
Madam Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to speak. Madam Speaker, the ministry was established following the 2021 general election by the Cabinet of the Cayman Islands in order to prepare our country for the complex risks and realities of climate change and the need to meet the needs of the present without compromising the needs of future generations of Caymanians. That, Madam Speaker, is the essence of sustainability. It is about taking a balanced approach to preserve, develop social enterprise, social development, to balance environmental stewardship, and to promote a balance in terms of economic growth. Madam Speaker, the ministry provides strategic and policy direction, advice, funding, and governance in relation to achieving those balances to environmental protection and enhancement, and to achieve health and safety measures in preserving the environment of the Cayman Islands for future generations in addition to the current. Madam Speaker, this is the first annual report for this newly created ministry. When we next attend Parliament, the 2022 report will be delivered. Madam Speaker, the Auditor General has issued an unqualified opinion in respect to the financial statements of the ministry for the year ended 31st December 2021. And as noted earlier, this means that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the ministry as at 31st December 21, and its financial performance and cash flows for the 6-month period leading up to the end of 21. Madam Speaker, as shown on page 36 of the report, the ministry ended the 6 months of July to December with net assets totaling $5,538,000 and a surplus for the period of $513,000. Madam Speaker, there is an aspect that needs additional clarification in the report, which is around the issue of the authorized reallocation of $110,000 of the ministry's approved 2021 supplementary budgeted funds, which needed to be transferred to the portfolio of legal affairs under Section 11.5 of the Public Management and Finance Act in respect of exceptional circumstances. This reallocation related to legal costs that were awarded by the courts as a result of a successful judicial review undertaken by a group of adjacent landowners who challenged a decision by the previous cabinet in relation to a coastal works application. At the time, the newly created ministry did not have funding to satisfy the settlement of these costs, and the current cabinet transferred or approved the transfer of funds to cover the agreed settlement amount in accordance with Section 11.5 and 11.6 of the Public Management and Finance Act. Madam Speaker, the report fairly details the activities of the ministry, including its agencies, and importantly, Madam Speaker, this includes hazard management and Cayman Islands, as well as our National Weather Service, Madam Speaker, and of course the Department of Environment. Madam Speaker, I commend the report to the reading of members and the public, because I think it sets out some of the excellent work that these agencies carry out, which contributes to the safety of the lives of the people of the Cayman Islands, the safety of air operations, for example, and the preservation of and protection of our important natural environment, which helps add substantially to our tourism product. Madam Speaker, I think, as I said, there are some very, very important details contained in the report which reflects those activities, and I commend the reading of that, of the full report. We are still in the hurricane season, so certainly the opportunity to review what the National Weather Service has been doing and what hazard management Cayman Islands has been doing is and continues to be important. And I would say, Madam Speaker, that in terms of the hazard management Cayman Islands, that is an agency which is well respected across the Caribbean for the excellent work that they do. And there are people who will seek to emulate some of the things that they do. So I commend the report, Madam Speaker, and with that I will thank you for the opportunity to speak to it.
Report and recommendation of the Minister responsible for lands on the vesting of Crown land, Block 25B, Parcel 430, to Miguel Apollonio Ramos, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Deputy Premier, Minister of District Administration and Lands.
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I seek permission to lay on the table of this Honourable House of Parliament a report for the disposition of land that has been prepared in accordance with the Governor of Vesting of Lands Act 2025 revision.
Does the Deputy Premier wish to speak there too?
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this disposition returns to its rightful owner an undeveloped area of 0.23 acres, a parcel of residential development land in Evco Torres Lane in the constituency of Prospect that recently became vested in the Crown under the provisions of the Company Act. Madam Speaker, if I may first provide some background. The parcel's origin is derived from a 1983 residential subdivision. Since its creation, the parcel remained registered to the Subdivision Development Company, Bodin Crichton Development Limited. However, Madam Speaker, this company was struck off by the Register of Companies on the 30th day of September 1996, on the statutory grounds that the Register had reasonable cause to believe that the company was not carrying on business or indeed in operation in this jurisdiction, by virtue of Section 156, Part 4 of the Companies Act 2023 revision. Madam Speaker, in essence, this action was taken because the annual company registration fees were not paid. Section 162 of the said Act, and I quote, any property vested in or belonging to any company struck off the register under this said law shall thereupon vest in a minister charged with responsibility for finance and shall be subject to disposition by the Cabinet or to retention for the benefit of the people of these islands. Therefore, Madam Speaker, ownership of the property automatically became vested in the Crown after the company had been struck off for an excess of 10 years. This being the term of years after which a defunct company becomes incapable of being reinstated under the Act. Madam Speaker, in November of 2021, Mrs. Aina Brunella Ramos became aware that the parcel was not registered in her husband's name. She wrote to the then Minister of Finance, claiming rightful ownership of the property on behalf of her husband, namely Miguel Apollonio Ramos. She said that her husband, who is 76 years of age, is also suffering ill health, but in fact he had purchased the property from Bodin Crichton Development in 1996 for the consideration of $12,000. She and he both thought that they were the registered proprietors. Madam Speaker, Mrs. Ramos was able to provide a scanned, certified copy of the 1996 transfer of land form and a supporting affidavit provided by James Manoa Bodin III, who is the son of the now deceased defunct vendor company. Mr. Ramos accepts that he in fact failed to register the transfer of land RL1 form with the land register at the time, but his case, which is not contested, is that he did purchase the property in accordance with the signed transfer of land form. Madam Speaker, the Cabinet carefully considered the report on this matter, including the evidence that Mrs. Ramos was able to provide in support of her husband's claim to rightful ownership. The necessary documentation. The Cabinet agreed to accept the validity of the claim and to transfer the parcel to Mr. Ramos for nil consideration. The Cabinet decided to also waive the stamp duty due on the said transfer. Madam Speaker, I can in fact confirm that as required by the Act, the details of this proposed land disposition have been published in the Cayman Islands Gazette on the 20th day of August 2023 and a local newspaper, namely the Caymanian Times, on the 13th of September 2023. Accompanying the report that I just laid, Madam Speaker, are all the documents specified in Section 10.2 of the Governor Vesting Lands Act 2005 revision, including the 3 valuation reports, one from the Lansing Survey for CI $172,000, Blue Point for $188,000, and JEC for $175,000. Madam Speaker, I thank you for your discretion. Those are my submissions.
Cayman Port Annual Report 2022, Port Authority of the Cayman Islands, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Minister of Tourism and Ports.
The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Ports.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to lay before this Honourable House the Annual Report 2022 for the Airports Authority of the Cayman Islands.
I see it looks like the Honourable Minister wishes to speak.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in accordance with Section 52(8) of the Public Management and Finance Act 2022 revision, it gives me great pleasure to place before this Honourable House the annual report and audited financial statements of the Port Authority of the Cayman Islands for the fiscal year ended the 31st of December 2022. Madam Speaker, the 2022 audited financial statements show that the total operating income for the year ended 31st of December 2022 was $23,991,007, while the total operating expenditures was $25,244,840. The annual expense for the defined benefit liability, together with the actuarial remeasurement of the defined benefit liability and the gains achieved in the reevaluation of the investment property at December 31st of 2022 totaled $17,290,654. This resulted in a net income of $16,035,821. Operating expenditures exceeded operating income by $1,253,833 due to increased expenditure from the resumption of cruise, major repairs of cranes, forklifts, and other infrastructures, increase in the cost of fuel and other operating costs, the recruitment of 33 new positions, COLAs that are awarded by government, and provisions of a $1.6 million in staff payments due to staff being mandated to work on additional hours without compensation from back in January 2019. The authority had current assets of $15,854,795 and non-current assets of $80,407,803. Total assets amounted to $96,262,598 as of the 31st of December 2022. The current liabilities were $3,352,143, and the non-current liabilities, which presents the authority's defined benefit, health care liabilities, and the lease liabilities was at $36,054,697 at the 31st of December of 2022. Total liabilities amounted to $39,406,840 for the same date. Total equity being contributed capital, retained earnings, and reevaluations reserves amounted to $56,855,758. The total liabilities and equity amounted to $96,262,598 for the year ended 31st of December 2022. Madam Speaker, the audited financial statements of the authority included the Auditor General's opinion. The financial statements have been audited by the Auditor General, and I'm delighted to report, Madam Speaker, that an unqualified audit opinion has been issued on the 31st of December 2022 financial statements. The Auditor General states that the financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the financial position of the Port Authority of the Cayman Islands as of the 31st of December 2022, and its financial performance and cash flows for the year ended in accordance with the International Financial Reporting Standards. Madam Speaker, in closing, I would like to thank the Board and the management of the Port Authority of the Cayman Islands for their hard work in producing these audited financial statements. I invite members of this Honourable House and Parliament and the public to review this report in detail, and I now invite members of this Honourable House to take time while looking at the report, because there's some good performances by the Board, the management staff, and the new direction at the Port Authority. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Annual report for Cayman Airways Limited for the 2022 financial year, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Minister of Tourism and Ports.
Honourable Minister for Tourism and Ports.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to lay the annual report for Cayman Airways for the year ended 2022 financial year.
Is a member wishing to speak?
Yes, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in accordance with Section 52(8) of the Public Management and Finance Act 2022, revision, sorry, Madam Speaker, I see that I was reading the port documents all over again. Madam Speaker, in accordance with Section 61(a) of the Public Management and Finance Law 2020 revision, I place before this Honourable House the audited financial statements of the Cayman Airways Limited for the year ended the 31st of December 2022. Madam Speaker, during the fiscal period, the airline transported some 335,000 passengers on 9,500 flights. During the period, the airline also transported over 2,050 tons of cargo. In June 2021, the Cayman Islands government announced a phased border reopening plans, expecting by January 2022 to welcome all travelers irrespective of their vaccination status. Cayman Airways prepared budgets accordingly. However, Madam Speaker, full reopening of our borders was postponed until late August of 2022 for various reasons. Noting, Madam Speaker, that strategic tourism, regional and core air services require continuous monitoring to ensure demand is met, relevant activities are launched, and flight schedules are adjusted as needed. In 2022, with travel to the destination initially restricted to vaccinated passengers, demand saw a gradual recovery. In collaboration with the Cayman Islands government, some international flights were reduced and others were delayed. The use of the larger aircraft, the 160-seat Boeing 737-8 MAX versus the 122-seat Boeing 737-300 meant fewer flights, but similar or more seating capacity. Though Cayman Airways prioritizes timelines and reliability,
its on-time performance suffered in the first half of the year due to verifying vaccinations, travel approvals, and test results causing delays, especially on a full flight. The CAL 2 funding was increased by $1.7 million in 2022 to cover the 2% COLA increase, a December increment, and cost of the new Los Angeles route. During 2022, as the world recovered from COVID-19, inflation grew at historical rates, leading to increased costs for Cayman Airways, especially in global oil prices. Despite lower fuel usage than expected, the airline's fuel expenditures rose by $11.3 million. The airline's 2022 financials report a net loss of $11.1 million for 2022. The original budget had called for a net loss of $7.2 million, Madam Speaker. Therefore, net loss of $3.9 million more than forecasted due to the fuel expenses, despite reduced consumption from budgeted targets and other increased costs. Annually, the company reviews its property, plants, and equity for impairment losses whenever events or changes in circumstances indicate that the carrying amount may not be recoverable or when the impairment indicators are present. As of the 31st of December 2022, no indicators of an impairment were apparent in respect to the fixed assets of the company. Our continued strategic use of Cayman Airways during the period of border closure, followed by our ability to quickly react to changes in the relaxation of COVID-19 restrictions, means that we were able to ensure access to and from the Cayman Islands was provided as needed. Madam Speaker, the financial statements I present have been audited by the Auditor General in accordance with the provisions of Section 61A of the Public Management and Finance Act 2020 revision. An unqualified opinion has been issued on the 31st of December 2022 financials, with an emphasis of matter for the company's reliance on financial support from the Cayman Islands government. The Auditor General states that the financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the financial position of the company as of the 31st of December 2022, and its financial performance and its cash flows for the year ended the 31st of December 2022, in accordance with the International Financial Reporting Standards. Madam Speaker, in closing, I would like to thank the board and the management of Cayman Airways Limited for their efforts in producing these audited financial statements and the Office of the Auditor General in auditing them. I now invite members of this Honourable House to provide and the public to review the report in detail. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Annual Report 2022, Tourism Attraction Board. To be laid on the table by the Honourable Minister of Tourism and Ports.
Honourable Minister for Tourism and Ports.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to lay the Annual Report 2022 for the Tourism Attraction Board for this Honourable House.
Does the Minister wish to speak?
Yes, Madam Speaker. In accordance with Section 61A of the Public Management and Finance Law 2020 revision, I am pleased today to place before this Honourable House the annual report and audited financial statements of the Cayman Islands Tourism Attraction Board for the fiscal year 2022. Madam Speaker, the Cayman Islands Tourism Attraction Board is a statutory authority established under the Tourism Attractions Board Law 1996, revision on the 25th of November 1996. The primary function of the Tourism Attraction Board is the general and financial management of the government-owned tourism attractions in accordance with the aforementioned law and the Cabinet directives. Those are Pedro St. James, Queen Elizabeth II Botanic Park, the Hell Geological Site, and the Cayman Islands Craft Market. The operations of the authority are regulated by the government of the Cayman Islands. Madam Speaker, The 2022 audited financial statements show that the total income for the year ended the 31st of December 2022 was $2,811,846, while the total expenditures was $2,725,961. This resulted in a net surplus of $85,884. The authority, the board, had current assets of $2,247,585 and non-current assets of $9,439,693. Total assets equated to $11,687,278 at the 31st December 2022. The current liabilities were $339,353, and there were no non-current liabilities. Total liabilities therefore equated to $339,353. Total equity being contributed capital and retained earnings equaled $11,347,926, and the total liabilities and equity amounted to $11,687,279. Madam Speaker, the audited financial statements of the Tourism Attraction Board included the Auditor General's opinion. The entity received an unqualified opinion for the year ended 2022, and the Auditor General found that the financial statements of the authority of the board presented fairly in all material aspects the financial position of the Tourism Attraction Board as of the 31st of December 2022, and its financial performance and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with the international public sector accounting standards. I would like to thank the board and the management of the Cayman Islands Tourism Attractions Board for their efforts in producing these audited financial statements, and the Office of the Auditor General for auditing them, Madam Speaker. I invite members of this Honourable House and the public to review the report in detail. Madam Speaker, in closing though, I would like to highlight a recent development regarding the Tourism Attraction Board. As members would recall, the Tourism Attraction Board has been restructured and reinstated as a new entity, the Cayman Islands National Attractions Authority. Madam Speaker, you may have been hearing me making a few mistakes between board and authority as my speech was delivered, but it's merely in that respect because this report relates to before the transition happened. Madam Speaker, the Cayman Islands National Attractions Authority was established on the 1st of June of this year, 2023, under the Cayman Islands National Attractions Authorities Act 2023. This act supersedes the Tourism Attractions Board Act of 1996. The primary mandate of the Cayman Islands National Attractions Authority is to oversee both the general and financial management of properties vested into the authority or placed under its management, aligning with the overarching policies of the Cayman Islands government. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Office of the Ombudsman, Annual Report 2022. To be laid on the table by the Chairman of the Select Committee to oversee the performance of the Office of the Ombudsman, the Honourable Minister of Youth, Sports, Culture and Heritage.
The Honourable Minister for Planning and Infrastructure.
Madam Speaker, I rise to seek your permission to lay on the table of the Honourable House the report for the Ombudsman Annual Report of 2022 for the Minister of Sports and Culture.
Oh, so ordered. Does the Honourable Minister wish to speak there too?
No, ma'am, it's self-explanatory. '22 Annual Report, Portfolio of Legal Affairs, Cayman Islands Government.
to be laid on the table by the Honourable Attorney General, ex officio member, responsible for the portfolio of legal affairs.
The Honourable Attorney General.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I seek the leave of the House to lay on the table the annual report for the portfolio of legal affairs for the period ending December 2022.
Does the Honourable Attorney General wish to speak thereto?
Madam Speaker, just to say that I wish to commend the report to honourable members of this Parliament and the public in general. The report is a pretty comprehensive narrative of the activities of the portfolio during the reporting period, and it covers the various departments within the portfolio, Madam Speaker. In addition to that, members would note that the Auditor General statement is unqualified, and Madam Speaker, I wish to thank the members of staff for the portfolio for their continuing dedication and professionalism during the relevant period and beyond. I do thank you, Madam Speaker.
Questions to Honourable Ministers and members of the Cabinet.
Call on a suspension of the standing orders to ask questions past 11 a.m. The Honourable Premier.
Thank you.
11 a.m.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to move the suspension of standing orders 23, 7, and 8 in order to allow the putting of questions and responses thereto after the hour of 11 a.m.
The question is that standing orders 23, 7, and 8 be suspended to accommodate questions being asked after 11 a.m. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it.
The elected member for Georgetown North to ask the Honourable Minister of Planning, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure. Question number 5.
The elected member for Georgetown North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to ask question number 5 in my name to the Honourable Minister of Planning, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure. And the question reads, Madam Speaker, can the Honourable Minister state when the Deloitte report with the recommendations on public transportation will be made public along with the terms of reference that formed the basis of the report?
Honourable Minister for Planning and Infrastructure.
Madam Speaker, I can confirm that upon receiving the necessary approvals, we will proceed to publish the report along with the terms of reference very shortly.
The elected member for Georgetown North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If I could ask the Minister what approvals are required?
The Honourable Minister for Planning and Infrastructure.
Madam Speaker, I just want to make sure that Cabinet has gone through the report and fully understands it before we issue it.
Are there any supplemental questions? The elected member for Georgetown North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the Minister for the answer. Madam Speaker, the last time we were in the House, I realized that the Minister had just taken over the Ministry of Transportation. I know that the general public anticipated that, as what was said, anticipated that we would see this report and perhaps a plan in the first quarter 2023. Madam Speaker, this is a $200,000 report, and it's a much, much larger problem, as we hear daily on the radio about the traffic. And whilst roads are important, we cannot build our way out of traffic, Madam Speaker. Public transport has to be one of the many solutions, but a very important one. Madam Speaker, the Public Transport Board in 2019 published a strategic plan, 2019 to 2024. Can the Honourable Minister, if he can, say whether or not this plan is still being followed, or has work begun on any other sorts of plans to address public transport?
The Honourable Minister for Planning and Infrastructure.
Madam Speaker, I wish to assure the honourable members and esteemed members of this House that we are steadfast in our commitment to not only meeting but exceeding the expectations of the public in our pursuit to revamping the solutions to the public transportation system, but to make everybody know that this government actually takes it very serious that this transportation system has to be fixed. Madam Speaker, not only that, but we all do understand too that it takes funding to get this where we need, and we're looking forward to putting some funding in the new budget coming up to be able to tackle this transportation system. And I think as one of the members from the eastern side of the island, Madam Speaker, this has become a plague for not only me, but for my other colleagues from the eastern side of the island. They understand how important it is for us to fix it. And nothing has been done with it for so long. And we have taken the time now to try to sort out this. And I understand that we may not be moving at the speed that the member may not like, but at the same time, nothing was done for previous years, ma'am. So we have to learn how to walk, and we're moving forward ahead with this.
Elected member for Georgetown North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the Minister for updating us on all of the lateral moves that the plan is being made. I'd like to see some vertical. But, Madam Speaker, from the Minister's response, can I confirm from him then, understanding that the Deloitte $200,000 study has not made it to Cabinet yet, or has not been confirmed to go to public as yet, can I confirm, or can the Minister confirm, if funding will be in the upcoming budget to realize any sort of major change to the public transport plan?
Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I think I just covered that earlier, that we are looking to seek and put funding for the new year coming up in the new budget to be able to tackle transport. And the only thing, if the Minister wants more, I would just tell him to use one of my famous lines, stay tuned.
I'll allow one more supplementary. The Honourable elected member for Georgetown North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just in case anyone else on my side wants to ask a question, I just wanted to thank the Minister for his answers.
Are there any other questions?
The elected member for Georgetown North to ask the Honourable Minister of Planning, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure, question number 6.
Elected member for Georgetown North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise once again to ask question number 6 in my name to the elected member, to the Honourable Minister of Planning, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure. And the question reads, Madam Speaker, can the Honourable Minister provide an update on the repairs to district roads and advise what work has been done so far in each constituency?
The Honourable Minister of Planning, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure.
Madam Speaker, I think I just covered that earlier, that we are looking to seek and put funding for the new year coming up in the new budget to be able to tackle transport. And the only thing, if the Minister wants more, I would just tell him to use one of my famous lines, stay tuned.
The Honourable Minister of Planning, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure.
Madam Speaker, the NRA Director and his team has completed 10 district roads, 3 in Northside, 1 in Savannah, 1 in Georgetown South, 3 in Georgetown Central, 1 in West Bay North, 1 in West Bay West, and they're actively making strides to another 8 projects that are currently in the progress. And looking ahead, there are plans to undertake another 25 road projects in the coming month, and the NRA has truly organized these developments by districts.
The elected member for Georgetown South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a supplementary question. Can the Honourable Minister indicate or give us some idea of the roads? Can you name the roads, particularly in Georgetown South? But I would think all the members would like to know what roads, if you could specifically speak to the roads that have been, the work has been carried out in our constituencies. Thank you.
Minister for Planning, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure.
Madam Speaker, I have a list of roads here that I want to say that are being worked on or are in the pipeline to be worked on. And Madam Speaker, may I ask the member from, is it Georgetown West? South, sorry. Which particular road is that she's pertaining to?
Member for Georgetown South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I really couldn't say. I just, in your question, on your answer, you said there's one in Georgetown South. So my question to you is, can you provide me with the name of the road? I really wouldn't know what road in Georgetown South you were referring to. So if you could provide a name, then I can identify whether it is in fact in Georgetown South or not.
Honourable Minister for Planning.
Madam Speaker, on my list that I have here, and I do apologize to them, but I can put it in writing to the member for Georgetown South, but for some reason she's the one member that I do not have a road here on this list for, but I will provide it to you in writing which road that was, unless you can tell us that it was a particular road that you asked for. Okay, thank you. So I would just like to go through the roads then, since the minister from Georgetown North asked earlier the list of the district roads. So starting out from Bordentown East, there is a Pasture Drive, Starwood Drive, Staffron Lane, Woodsworth South, and a Sitwell Road, and a Mimosa Lane that they will be working on. And Bordentown West, there's a few roads there. We are happy to sit down with the member to see which roads are more priority for him to deal with. And directly into Red Bay area, there's Hawley Drive, Patrick Avenue, Ribbon Close, and Sweet Leaf Close. And in Georgetown East, there's Rose Lane and Glimmonth. And in Georgetown West, there is Merindale Drive, yes, and Dorset Lane that we are looking to do. And then we are also looking to do some travel lane repairs on South Church Street near the Eden Rock. When we get down to West Bay South, my minister next to me here has always advocated for Powell-Smith Drive, or Powell-Smith Road, I think it's called, and that is actually in the mix to be done. But Madam Speaker, I just want to let everybody know that we are not the pavers of the roads. You know, we go out and we facilitate with the island paving, which do the paving, so we have to work with their time frames on when they can get to each road to be able to pave these roads, or if some of them, if they're looking at chip and spray, and then those are the ones that NRA can do. But right now, at the moment, some of the time frames have been more precedent for the main highways that we're doing, working with island paving right now.
The elected member for Georgetown North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I just quickly, I wonder if before I ask my question, if the Minister could provide us with a copy of those roads that you just listed off. I do have another supplementary question, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, back in May 2nd, 2022, let me start a little early. Madam Speaker, we put a process in place, or a process was put in place by the NRA, where they would send out a list of roads with a PCI, a pavement condition index, and with a value, and each MP for the area would choose out of those roads, and within their budget that they were given, which roads they would like to have repaired. I did receive my list on May 2nd, 2022, and I think some others on the opposition side may have as well. And I responded with the roads I felt were more desperate or were more priority. Madam Speaker, the reason we're standing here and asking these questions is because we haven't seen any of these roads that we selected fixed so far. And I wonder if the Minister could confirm to me whether the process has changed, or is there something else we have to do? We don't know, Madam Speaker, because this is at least certainly for the last previous 6 or 8 years, that's the way it was done, and you'd start in East End and move to West Bay, and West Bay back to East End. So I'm just checking to see if the Minister can confirm if this, in fact, is the same process or if the process has changed.
Honourable Minister for Planning and Infrastructure.
Madam Speaker, the process has not really changed, but what I want to do, remind the member, as also is that when you're sitting on different side of the aisle now, you get time to think a little bit more and realize how you used to treat people in the past. Madam Speaker, I want to remind him of how the Eastern Districts were treated too, you know. Madam Speaker, I just went out and announced that there are some roads that we're doing.
Madam Speaker, on a point of order.
Elected member for Georgetown North, what's your point of order?
Madam Speaker, if the Honourable Minister is going to make comments like that, he should look in the Hansards to see when I answered these very same questions, and where I started in the Eastern District and actually spent more money in the Eastern Districts than any other district. And Madam Speaker, the Honourable Minister can't say that because he was never in here. This is his first time. The only other person that could speak to the way I treated them would have been the former representative, Mr. Miller. But if he so wishes, bring the evidence, go in the Hansards. I beg you, look at my answer when this very same question was asked of me by, I think it was the representative from East End at the time.
Madam Speaker, I may not have been in the House here, but Madam Speaker, one thing I do, I have been living in the North Side for several years. So I kept track of what was going on. So, well, that's between you and him. We're not going to get down on that. But Madam Speaker, I have just listed the name of the roads. Some of the roads are out. I have taken drives with the honourable the member from opposition leader, or deputy leader, sorry. And we have drove down in his areas, not within about the last 2 months. And he has told us the areas that he wanted to get fixed, and we agreed that we'll fix it. Madam Speaker, just yesterday I had a conversation with the member, because he did not even speak to me, but he spoke to the director asking him to do something for him. And I just told him, I said, hey, we are going to look at doing this road. But just to make sure that we are, everybody here, and we're not playing politics with side by side, Madam Speaker. This is a huge thing, we understand. Everybody goes from getting roads done to drainage to everything else. We have delivered a lot more drains all over the place. We have did several roads, not just in my area, along throughout the whole island. But I just don't want it to get into a political back and forth. that we are not doing for certain areas, because that is far from the truth, Madam Speaker. What we are is working with the time frame that we have when it comes to the company that's doing the paving for us. As I've asked the member yesterday, if it's a road that he would love to see chip and spray, I could get to it faster. If it was a road that he wanted to see asphalted.
Elected member for Georgetown North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for that clarification. Madam Speaker, let me first say that yes, the honourable member has toured my constituency, and within days, in particular, we had a wall that was sore. A car had unfortunately, it was a tragic accident. They fixed the wall, and I thank them. I thank the Public Works Department for that, Madam Speaker. And I also always appreciate and praise the team at the NRA, in particular when it comes to preparing our low-lying areas for oncoming rain and in the aftermath when we suffer the flooding. But Madam Speaker, we're talking about the road repairs here, and we as representatives, and Madam Speaker, when I ask these questions and when I'm speaking on behalf of my colleagues in the official opposition. So it's just not me, but we also have to answer to representatives, to our constituents. And when our constituents cry and complain that their cars are falling into the potholes, then we need to try and find answers for them. So I'm not playing politics, Madam Speaker and Honourable Minister, but we do have questions from our constituents that we have to answer, and this is where I come to ask them. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, if you may.
Honourable Minister for Planning and Infrastructure.
Madam Speaker, the one road that was in Georgetown South was Olympic Way that I was talking about.
The elected member for Georgetown East to ask the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness and Home Affairs. Question number 7.
The elected member for Georgetown East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to ask the Honourable Minister of Health question number 7, standing in my name, which reads, can the Honourable Minister provide an update on the plan she announced about a year ago to separate the Public Health Department from the Health Services Authority, and B, allow public health to become an independent body? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister for Health and Wellness.
Thank you. Answer. Madam Speaker, as of August 2023, the Ministry of Health and Wellness is in receipt of a strategic outline case which accesses the available options regarding the development of the Public Health Department and separation from the Health Services Authority. The Ministry is currently preparing a cabinet paper to present the strategic outline case and outline the next steps to cabinet for a review and acceptance. A formal business case is then required once a strategic outline case has been accepted by cabinet. Developing and enhancing the Public Health Department is intended to improve the national focus of public health. The desire is to develop the scope of public health beyond the traditional focus on immunizations and strengthen and equip the department to have a modern public health capacity for protecting and improving our nation's health. It is also envisioned to be a national focal point gathering and monitoring health data from all healthcare providers on island, both public and private, to report indicators that reflects the whole population of the Cayman Islands.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just one final question from me. To the Minister. Minister, can you state if there's any sort of time frame in which you are anticipating that this process might be completed in terms of obtaining requisite Cabinet approvals?
Honourable Minister for Health and Wellness.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Speaker. What is next, as previously stated, is that the strategic outline case is approved by Cabinet. Then that will be followed by a business case that will provide a clearer timeline and give more details. We anticipate the Cabinet paper for the acceptance and support of Cabinet of the strategic outline case either the end of this month or the early part of October. And following that, and a full business case, as I stated, will likely take another 6 to 8 months. And of course, that then has to take its course. But I must say that we are well in advance in preparation and laying a true foundation for this move to become a reality, because we're also in the process, as I've stated on this honourable floor, in this honourable Parliament, we're working on the Public Health Act as well, that it's also in its advanced stages and preparing to come to Cabinet for acceptance and support to be transferred then or get support for legal drafting of that bill.
Are there any supplementary questions?
The elected member for Georgetown East to ask the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness and Home Affairs, question number 8.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to ask question number 8 of the Honourable Minister for Health and Wellness and Home Affairs. Question number 8, standing in my name. The question reads, can the Honourable Minister say what action is being taken to ensure that sufficient final resting places will be available on all 3 islands to meet future needs?
The Honourable Minister for Health and Wellness.
Thank you. Madam Speaker. Answer. The Department of Environmental Health, under the Ministry of Health and Wellness, is responsible for cemetery management in Grand Cayman. The duty entails construction and sale of vaults. Cemeteries in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman fall under the Ministry of District Administration and Lands. Madam Speaker, as part of DEH annual budget exercise, considerations are made for a number of new vaults based on district needs and available resources. Overall, there are 7,639 vaults estimated to be constructed in Grand Cayman's public cemeteries. For the sake of my honourable colleagues, in my reply provided, it's outlined in Table 1 and Figure 1 below. I will take this opportunity for the viewing and listening audience to state that cemeteries to be constructed in Bosun Bay is 22, in East End, 149 vaults to be constructed, Gun Bay, 23, North Side, 144, Old Man Bay, 66, Prospect, 2,497, Bodden Town Cemetery, 803, St. Mary's Garden of Rest, 3,935. Madam Speaker, based on our historical usage, the estimated closure year for each cemetery is also provided to my honourable colleagues, but for the purpose of our listening and viewing audience, of particular note, Madam Speaker, the Bosun Bay Cemetery is expected to reach capacity in 24 and East End Cemetery by 2057. The estimated closure of St. Mary's Garden of Rest Cemetery in West Bay is in the year 2167, and Northwest Point and West Bay cemeteries are closed at this time. Now, vaults remaining, as I alluded to, that is not able to be shown to those viewing and listening audience. In Bosun's Bay, we have 22, East End 149, Gun Bay 23, Northside 144, Old Man Bay 66, Prospect 2,497, Boddentown New Cemetery 803, St. Mary's Garden of Rest 3,935. However, it should be pointed out, Madam Speaker, that as a result of Cabinet's approval on the 29th of March 2022, double stacked vaults are allowed. This new burial practice provides an opportunity to use a cemetery that is otherwise considered closed or to extend one that is nearing capacity. In anticipation of future needs, Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Health and Wellness team are in the midst of an extensive review of the Public Health Act, the substantive legislation in which the DEH operates. This exercise, Madam Speaker, is complex, and as the Act affects a number of entities that deliver and manage public health services. Madam Speaker, one suggestion for the review team is to develop a bespoke legislation for environmental health functions. And this is a direction in which the ministry intends to proceed. When the new Environmental Health Act is drafted, we expect that soon after, provisions would be made for formalization of cemeteries and crematoria regulations, which will benefit all cemeteries, including those in our sister islands.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to thank the Minister for the detailed response she gave. Just sort of information we're looking for to understand too what the current capacity is in terms of the future for cemetery vaults. I noticed in her response to Madam Speaker, she stated that Cabinet had given approval in March of 22 for the double stacking of vaults. I just wonder if he's aware if there are any double stacking taking place at this time, or whether there is for the work that needs to be done in terms of, I don't know if there are any legislation requirements or not, but wonder if the approval of that policy is now implemented and it's actually taking place.
Honourable Minister for Health and Wellness.
Madam Speaker, thank you. That process has begun. There's one definitely in the BRAC. This is a new culture for us, and I know that DEH now have strengthened and improved the base constructions of all vaults, knowing that this policy is now in effect, that person does have this as an option. And yes, I've been told for East End for sure. So people are catching on, and this will, as I said earlier on in my reply, will improve and expand the life of these cemeteries not being deemed full.
Statements by honourable ministers and members of the Cabinet.
I've given leave to a few of the members to offer statements. I will begin with the Honourable Minister of Tourism and Ports. Honourable members, I will change the order of the statements and ask the Honourable Premier to start. I'll give him leave to start with his statement first. The Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise in this Honourable House to offer remarks with respect to the Cayman Islands economy, our future prospects, including our current economic success and the impacts on the well-being of our nation's most precious commodity, our people. Madam Speaker, today I will outline the ongoing recovery of Cayman's economy, highlight the prospects appearing along the horizon for our largest industries, and detail the government's current fiscal position along with our end-of-year 2023 financial forecast. I am proud to report, Madam Speaker, as predicted, that Cayman's economy is strong and getting stronger. We are steadily recovering from the devastation of the COVID-19 pandemic. And Madam Speaker, the Cayman Islands continues to show strong, stable, positive growth. The hotel, restaurant, transport, storage, and communication sectors all grew in 2022 and further improved so far in 2023. International business is thriving, restaurants are full, shops are bustling, and for those that want them, jobs are certainly available up and down the economic ladder. And Madam Speaker, despite the hardships experienced during the global pandemic, the financing and insurance and business services sectors have shown remarkable resilience and have continued to expand even beyond expectations. When this government came into office, Madam Speaker, at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, we were united around the need to put the well-being of our people first. In April of 2021, we gave the people a government that had our people at its epicenter. It was and remains a government for the people of these islands. For the people, Madam Speaker. That phrase is used often in politics. Sometimes I think the meaning becomes lost and becomes a bit of a cliche. When some, for example, say for the people, they don't necessarily mean all the people. They mean some people. Sometimes it's their people. But Madam Speaker, when this government says for the people, we mean all the people, all Caymanian people and families. And not only the people and families of the Cayman Islands that exist today, but also for all the people and families to come. For the people, Madam Speaker, means that we cannot afford to flippantly be for this interest or for that interest. No. No, Madam Speaker. This government must always strive to do what is in the common interest for all the people of this country. And yet, the meaning, the heart of the phrase remains the same no matter who says it. And everything we do here must be for them, for the benefit of them and their families. Madam Speaker, for the people also means that in good times and in bad, that you are there for the people, no matter what. Come what may. It means that you understand and have real sympathy for the concerns and the needs of ordinary Caymanians, that you engage with them regularly. You eat from their tables at their invitation, and you are accepted by them. For the people, from the beginning, Madam Speaker, has been enshrined in the philosophical heart of this administration. The people of this country voted the way they did at the last election because they wanted a new kind of government, one with a heart for the people. And let me take this moment to remind you that as Premier, I am the chief servant and guardian of the people. As Premier, it is my job to see beyond forecasts and indicators, beyond dollars and cents. Ultimately, all the spreadsheets, analyses, and reports mean nothing if we don't meaningfully impact the health, safety, happiness, and general quality of life of Caymanian people. Because to be a successful society, Madam Speaker, that offers value and meaningful service to its people, the numbers on the page can't simply present a set of orderly, lifeless, balanced accounts. If the people are at the center of everything we do, and they do, then those numbers should contribute to continue to create a thriving, safe, smart, and healthy population. Indeed, Madam Speaker, what good is economic success if our people, or any of them, are being left behind? Madam Speaker, I remain committed, my colleagues remain committed to being the servants of the Caymanian people and Caymanian families, to ensuring that we march together forward to create a better, stronger Cayman now and for future generations. For some people, Madam Speaker, leadership is all about being political and transactional. But in my view, leadership and leaders should care more about principles than merely politics. The development and well-being of our people forms the foundation of this administration's governing philosophy and was the core guiding principle guiding the development of the 2024 to 26 Strategic Policy Statement, published earlier this year. Madam Speaker, strong leaders remain relevant when they stand up for their principles. A singular belief in the resiliency, the potential and strength of the Caymanian people shapes everything we do in government. This administration remains focused on preparing our country to deal with the realities of an ever-changing world and equipping individuals, families, businesses, and institutions with the tools necessary and the environment necessary to confront those realities with confidence and hope. With this overarching goal in mind, Madam Speaker, I want to talk about the state of the economy and projections for 23 and 24, balance of 23 and into 24. Madam Speaker, preliminary indications suggest that the economy of the Cayman Islands expanded in real terms by 3.8% in 2022, a continuation of the recovery experienced since 2021. The expansion reflected robust global demand for Cayman services and underpins our people's hard work and dedication. The indicators for the first quarter of this year show that gross domestic product, or GDP, expanded by 3.4%. This robust performance, Madam Speaker, was largely driven by a strong recovery in the hotels and restaurants and transport and storage and communications sectors, whilst maintaining strength in other sectors that have been demonstrated over the prior periods. In 2022, Madam Speaker, the hotels and restaurant sector grew by 23.2% over the prior year, with projected growth of 29.9% in 2023 and 17% in 2024. Madam Speaker, this is no doubt a clear reflection of the strength and the effort brought to bear by the Minister and the Ministry of Tourism and Transport and Ports and the Department of Tourism. Madam Speaker, when this government assumed office at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, we decided to prioritize the lives of our people and sustainably reopen our borders. Madam Speaker, the decisions government have had to take have not been easy, but we took them, and I'm proud, Madam Speaker, and probably relieved that it was clearly the right decisions in announcing that we made those right decisions. And not only was the loss of lives minimized, but the tourism industry has rebounded even stronger. Madam Speaker, it is in moments like these that we can see the tangible benefits of our actions in creating opportunities that benefit Caymanians in their everyday lives. And that means this job is worthwhile. For the first 6 months of 2023, Madam Speaker, over 235,000 stayover tourists visited our islands, representing more than 80% of the total in the first 6 months of 2019, when we experienced record stayover arrivals. And cruise visitors are also recovering, with over 740,000 visitors by the end of 2023. Of course, members are aware that the projection in respect of cruise visitors is that it will not hit the previous high targets. That's not likely, but it will come very close, I'm sure. Madam Speaker, the transport, storage, and communication sector expanded by 11.4%. Our national carrier, Cayman Airways, has continued to expand and add new routes. Activities at our major seaport have grown substantially as well, with merchandise imports rising by 17.4% in 2022 and supporting an expansion of wholesale and retail trade. For the first half of 2023, merchandise imports grew by 1.3% relative to the same period last year. Madam Speaker, having carefully navigated the critical recovery phase post-pandemic, our economy has emerged stronger. We're expecting economic expansion over the next 2 years, with the Department of Economics and Statistics projecting overall economic growth of an average of 3.1% over this year, the full year 2023, and projecting 2.2% for 2024. Madam Speaker, turning my attention to the construction sector. Madam Speaker, that sector expanded in 2022 by 1%, while the real estate sector grew by 4.8%. While these sectors continue to grow, I think there's a recognition that the sector is experiencing headwinds in terms of higher borrowing costs and higher input costs. Madam Speaker, with regard to our linchpin financial services industry, the financing and insurance sector has been a key driver in the success of our economy and the prosperity enjoyed by our people for several decades now. It proved, Madam Speaker, to be the engine of our fiscal, of our revenue during the pandemic when borders were closed and international tourism suspended. Madam Speaker, this government is committed to supporting the sector in every way possible. The recent announcement that all the conditions are in place for us to receive a favorable response and hopefully removal of the Cayman Islands from the FATF grey list is a testament to the commitment, the growth and stability and health of financial services in this country. Madam Speaker, that is in no small way to the thanks of the Minister for Financial Services and the hard work of the Honourable Attorney General and the team which they work with. Madam Speaker, the sector is projected to expand moderately, or by an average of 1.2% between the rest of this year and during the course of 2024. The business services sector, comprised largely of legal and accounting services, also remained relatively robust during the crisis, Madam Speaker. And that sector is projected to grow by 1.9% in 2023 and 2.1% in 2024, having expanded by 2.1% in 2022. Madam Speaker, I think we are all passionate about the continued development of the Cayman Islands and the opportunities and interests of our people. And certainly for me, having spent most of my professional career in the legal and financial services industry, I am very conscious of the role and value and the critical services that they play in the meaningful development of our people. So I'm certainly proud to lead a government that is continuing the commitment to strengthening the resilience of the industry that is so vital to the economy and to the welfare and future prospects of so many in our islands. Madam Speaker, economic growth generally leads to the creation of jobs and decreases in unemployment. So now a few words about job creation and the issue of population growth. According to estimates from the Cayman Islands Labour Force Survey spring of 2023 report, the total labour force increased by 7.9% in the past year to include 58,669 people as of June 2023. Correspondingly, still maintaining its best in decades performance, the overall unemployment rate dropped to 2.4% in June of this year and is expected to average 2.5% between the balance of the year and 2024, having been down significantly from the 5.7% recorded in 2021. Madam Speaker, because of the foresight and wisdom and hard work of this government, the Caymanian unemployment rate fell to 3.7% of the labour force in June of this year, compared to 5.1% for the same period in 2022. And prior to that, it was as high as 5.8% in 2021. So a very significant level of reduction, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this record decline reflects concerted efforts by this government to prioritize the employment of displaced Caymanians as the economy recovered. This resulted in a reduction in the mismatch of labor demand and supply that typically occurs when latent economic activities begin to recover. Madam Speaker, I'm especially heartened by the dip in Caymanian unemployment, showing that our people are benefiting from the economic growth and returning to the job market. May not be 100%, Madam Speaker, but there is significant benefit. Our challenge is to continue that and increase that. As has long rather been the case, Madam Speaker, the Caymanians with the highest unemployment rate remain those without high school level education and further training. What we have seen as well, Madam Speaker, is that Caymanians with post-secondary education, including college and university degrees, had the lowest unemployment rates. That is why in the past 2 years, Madam Speaker, this PAC government has put special emphasis on providing training and upskilling to unemployed Caymanians. And we have steadily increased the budget allocations for scholarships and vocational training for school leavers and other young Caymanians. The thrust to make Cayman's job market a haven for Caymanians is front and center in our minds. And we are committed to continuing to improve the prospects of our people, irrespective of what the numbers show in terms of unemployment. It is imperative, Madam Speaker, that we continue to chip away at Caymanian unemployment and ensure that our people are benefiting more and more from the growth and strength of our economy. It is not enough just to create jobs. We must ensure that healthy, able-bodied Caymanians who want to work are qualified, trained, and able to take up their rightful place in our labor market. Madam Speaker, according to the Spring 2023 Labour Force Survey, the mid-year population of the Cayman Islands was estimated to be 83,671 people. Within this total, Caymanians amounted to 38,926, or 46.5% of that overall total. The total population indicated in the report, that of 83,671, reflected a growth of 2.6% from the 81,546 estimated in the previous year. Madam Speaker, we're all aware that there's been a lot of debate and discussion around the growth in the population of these islands, and rightly so. I've said in this House before, Madam Speaker, and I've said publicly, there are no policies, no initiatives, no programs which were designed by this government to try to achieve any sort of population growth. This has happened as a result, and in some cases to our surprise, of the strength of our recovery post the pandemic. Because we have had these kinds of debates, Madam Speaker, I think it behooves us to highlight some of the reasons, specific reasons for the increase in population over the past few years. As I mentioned earlier, our economy recovered quickly following the pandemic, and the handling of that, initially by the previous administration and then by this administration in terms of coming out of it, Madam Speaker. Some would say doing the hardest part of reopening. This growth has been led by some of the most labor-intensive industries, construction and tourism-related services, and by the expansion of others, including financial services, fintech, tech, healthcare. Further, Madam Speaker, we know that people moved to our islands during the pandemic, choosing to work remotely from a base here in our safe, clean, beautiful, wonderful islands. Many people, seeing the vulnerability of some service sectors during the pandemic, switched employment industries during COVID-19. Let us not forget that during the pandemic, the government made a concerted effort to absorb displaced workers and to boost inward economic activity with construction and local spending. This resulted in an influx of expatriate workers to fill jobs being created by the recovery. This is in part a consequence of the record low levels of Caymanian unemployment as well. Madam Speaker, in light of the 2 points just mentioned, there is no surprise that work permits increased from 26,321 in December 2021 to 36,372 in June 2023, clearly due to strong demand for labor in the hotel and restaurant industry, as well as construction, wholesale, retail, transport and storage, and financial services sectors. Madam Speaker, the results of the Spring Labour Force Survey also indicated that total employment rose to an estimated 57,226, of which 21,615, or 37.7%, were Caymanians. We can clearly see that even while the expat worker population grew, Caymanian employment also increased from 19,494 in 2021 to 22,457 in 2023. That's an increase of approximately 3,000 Caymanian jobs, Madam Speaker. Over the near term, we expect labour demand to continue to generally track GDP growth forecasts. But as I said earlier, Madam Speaker, this level of growth in jobs creates opportunities for our people over and above the benefits they've already had. So one of our challenges is to make sure that we continue to reduce Caymanian unemployment, chip away at that, and get our people into some of these jobs that have been created. I should also spend a few moments, Madam Speaker, talking about that great challenge over the last 18 months going on to 2 years now. Inflation. Madam Speaker, the rising cost of living in our islands, especially for the most vulnerable, is one of the most concerning issues we are currently grappling with. Notably, in the first quarter of 2022, when the invasion of Ukraine began by Russia, inflation reached a high point of 11.2%. The CPI report for the first half of 2023, Madam Speaker, indicates average prices rose by a further 5.3%. There's good news, better news than that though, Madam Speaker, because in the most recent quarter, ending June 2023, the consumer price index inflation rate was 4.1%, so down from a CPI inflation rate of 6.6% in the first quarter of 2023. Madam Speaker, that reflects a gradual leveling off of inflation. So the rate of inflation is not increasing rapidly or continuing to increase rapidly as it has done in the slightly more distant past. Even better news, Madam Speaker, is that for 2024, indications are that inflation will come down to in the region of 2.5%. So that is a very positive indication, Madam Speaker. But despite the slowdown in the pace of inflation, these increases remain well above comfort levels for most. And I must mention here that these inflationary pressures form a heavy burden on the shoulders of our people, increasing the cost of living for them and their families. Madam Speaker, that is why this government has done and will continue to do everything we can to help people and families in this country. Madam Speaker, we've implemented a number of initiatives, ranging from electricity subsidies to keep rates down for over 22,000 households, increased ex gratia payments to seafarers, veterans, and other vulnerable families, providing free school meals for our children, removing import duties on healthy foods, baby products, feminine hygiene products, and products that nurture energy efficiency and therefore reduce the cost of operating homes that our people live in. Madam Speaker, we extended the tourism worker stipend well into 2022, months after the borders reopened. We reduced a variety of fees for our seniors. We extended the pension holiday for an additional year and helped and continue to help with scholarships and tuition assistance for students. We are continuously looking at ways to minimize the impact of inflation on our population and our people. And my cabinet has appointed a committee to review the minimum wage of the lowest paid in our society, with a report expected this month with recommendations. Madam Speaker, we've also had an interministerial housing task force. That will be providing draft recommendations shortly, which will be sent to Cabinet. And when Madam Speaker, the technical working group of the Housing Task Force has considered the factors impacting the demand for housing, the supply of housing, and the price of housing, access to financing, and the availability and quality of rental housing. I made a number of recommendations on policy options available to the government. We remain committed to helping Caymanians secure a home that they can both afford to purchase and, importantly, they can afford to maintain on a monthly basis. Whether that be an apartment, townhouse, or a standalone home. Our administration remains committed to helping more Caymanians reach the dream of achieving home ownership. And I am reliably informed by my colleague, the Minister for Planning, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure, that we are going to be delivering more than 117 homes through the National Housing Development Trust, delivering more affordable homes than was done in the previous administration. I'm sure that the Minister will be seeing more about the NHDT's progress on delivering housing units in the days to come, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, please allow me to take a moment here to thank all of my colleagues in government, particularly the Deputy Premier, who coordinated the effort for expeditiously responding to an urgent need of many households in this country. When at the end of August of this past August, we released over $2.1 million to assist Caymanians in urgent need of home repairs for their houses. Madam Speaker, we will all recall there was a period of about a week where we had tremendous squalls and rain, which impacted our people and brought to light a number of issues that they may have had with their roofs. This was a rapid response to help people address those issues. We continue to do our endeavor best, Madam Speaker, to help Caymanians ensure their homes are safe at all times, and certainly more so during the hurricane seasons. Madam Speaker, our occasional differences notwithstanding, time and again, when it matters, we come together and proven that we have the ability to get things done on behalf of and for the benefit of the people of these islands. And again, we arrive back at our starting point, an end for every decision we make and every policy that we implement. The Caymanian people of our three beloved islands. When this government reopened their economy after COVID and got Cayman growing again, that was for the people too, Madam Speaker. When we produced one of the lowest Caymanian unemployment rates in decades, that was also on behalf of and for the people of this country. From June 2021 to June 2022, 314 small businesses also benefited from $166,294 in fee discounts. And during the same period, 1,958 small businesses or micro-businesses benefited from CI 1,471,300 in fee discounts in relation to business licenses. Madam Speaker, we extended the reduction in business fees for small and micro businesses through to the end of December of this year to help Caymanian businesses grow. Caymanian men and women, people who continue to support their families, are those people who are working in these businesses, that own these businesses. Madam Speaker, free school lunches or school meals for school children was not just for families of children of our supporters. It was for all the children, all families across the Cayman Islands, Madam Speaker. And again, assisting households to help them pay their electricity bill during a period of unprecedented geopolitical factors driving up the cost of fuel, assisting with energy audits, helping to retrofit homes that become more energy efficient, reducing duties on goods for families, and reducing and continuing to reduce fees for our seniors and elders, helping our students across the country with scholarships and other forms of tuition assistance. All of this, Madam Speaker, was for all the people and families of our beautiful Cayman Islands. And yes, Madam Speaker, for all of these sensible measures to help see our families through these tough times, yeah, we've taken some political heat, we've taken some criticism. Those to our political right worry perhaps we're going too far and that social spending will only further increase a sense of entitlement and perhaps will put our financial stability at risk. Those to our political left say that we're not going far enough with our support, that we should be providing more assistance to more people and for a longer period of time. Sometimes, Madam Speaker, when you hear the comments and you see the positions taken, it's kind of hard to figure out which side people are coming from, because sometimes they're on the right and then they jump to the left, and vice versa, depending on what suits them at any particular time. Madam Speaker, we are a government that seeks to achieve a balance, a government that simultaneously has a heart for Caymanians and a strong social conscience. We're also a government that understands that we must make financially prudent decisions and that we cannot recklessly spend it all today, because overspending will put our economy and financial independence at risk. Madam Speaker, this is the true reward of being able stewards of the people's interests. To be able to use the varied fruits of a healthy economy and robust government finances to thus ensure that all Caymanian people and Caymanian families benefit from the country's good fortune. Madam Speaker, I mentioned public finances, and I will discuss those for a bit. Madam Speaker, I'm going to use the August 2023 year-to-date numbers to give the most current, recent snapshot of the government's fiscal performance. Overall, I will say that the August year-to-date numbers follow the same trend seen in the first half of the financial year, with growth in work permit revenue over the prior year, which indicates that the local businesses have been on the rebound after suppressive effects of the global pandemic and are now staffing back up to their full complements. Additionally, we are seeing higher revenues from import duties and tourism-related fees and taxes compared to the previous year. This is not surprising, Madam Speaker, following the reopening of our borders. These two sectors have a symbiotic relationship, with higher tourism arrival numbers often resulting in increased consumption and increased imports. As expected, the full reopening of our borders and the removal of COVID-related mandates resulted in a strong resurgence in performance in the tourism sector. In general, of course, that had to be encouraged, didn't happen by accident. But in general, we have seen that positive financial performance in some areas has compensated for underperformance in other areas. To get a bit more specific, Madam Speaker, up to the end of August 2023, revenues amounted to $782.2 million. The original budget for the 2023 financial year, which was presented to the Parliament in November 2021, indicated that revenues for 2023 would be $978.1 million. By now, of course, we realize this is an out-of-date figure, and it is more appropriate that the government track its performance against the revised estimates of revenues and expenditures that were set out in the strategic policy statement, which was tabled, I think, April 26th of this year in this Parliament. The SBS, Madam Speaker, contained an updated revenue forecast for the 2023 financial year. This was an amount of $1.037 billion. For the 8-month period ended 31st August 23, it was expected that of the 2023's revenue total of $1.037 billion, $785.4 million would have been received. Actual revenues received for the 8-month period to 31st August 2023 of $782.2 million was therefore only $3.2 million less than the expected $785.4 million. Madam Speaker, this government is cautiously expecting that we will either achieve the target, the SBS revenue target, or we will perhaps at worst be marginally shy. Madam Speaker, the most significant positive year-to-date revenue variances were recorded in the following categories. Work permit revenues. The positive variance is reflected of the continued increase in labour demand. Tourism-related revenues, the positive variance is due to the increase in stay-over tourism. Investment revenue, the significant positive variance is a function of the relatively high rates of interest earned on fixed deposit balances of the government and the current significant bank account balances of the government that are placed on deposit. Briefly, in relation to operating and financial expenditures, Madam Speaker, expenses for the 8-month period ending 31st August were $647.7 million. This amount was $5.5 million more than the $642.2 million incurred in the comparable 8-month period ending 31st August 2022. Variances between actual and budgeted expenses are largely due to overages with respect to tertiary healthcare costs and the cost of care of indigents. Nothing new there, Madam Speaker. We are facing persistent challenges in increasing costs in those areas. These overages, Madam Speaker, were somewhat offset by underspending in other areas, particularly personnel and supplies and consumables. Madam Speaker, to ensure sufficient funds are available for the remainder of the budget year, we plan to have Finance Committee this week, and we'll shortly be asked to further approve supplementary funding in areas where spending is expected to exceed budget estimates. It is important, Madam Speaker, to note that a significant proportion of core government's operating revenue is earned during the first quarter of each financial year, which is when the financial services fees are due. And historically, revenues taper off as the year progresses. Despite this fact, however, Madam Speaker, government is expecting to end the year in a positive position with a forecasted operating surplus. Madam Speaker, in terms of bank balances, debt balance, at the end of August, government's closing bank accounts totaled $620.5 million, while core government debt balances stood at $471.4 million. Madam Speaker, in June of this year, U.S. Treasury notes previously held at their purchase price of $333.6 million, or CI, that's US, or CI 276.9 million matured. And the funds from those investments have been reinvested in the local US dollar fixed deposits mentioned earlier. So while government's debt stood at $471.7 million as at 31st August of this year, the Cayman Islands' resulting debt to GDP ratio of 7.7% remains amongst the lowest in the world. It's a very, very modest debt metric, Madam Speaker. And by way of comparison, the debt to GDP ratio for Japan is in the region of 200%, or over 200%. And comparing it to the UK, the ratio there is 80% debt to GDP. So, Madam Speaker, that's a clear indication that our level of debt is sustainable, under control, and we're being very prudent with respect to borrowing. Madam Speaker, we have achieved compliance with the principles of responsible financial management for 2022, and that is clearly an improvement over 2021, where for that year, a deficit was the year-end result, albeit some $40-odd million better than what had originally been projected by the previous administration. Madam Speaker, in terms of the following principles this is what our achievement was for the end of the 22 financial year. Operating surplus of 54 million CI. Net worth, where net worth is forecasted, net worth of 2.1 billion. Debt servicing costs, 7%, which is well obviously below the 10% threshold. Net debt was 16.6%, which is very comfortably within the maximum 80% threshold. And cash reserves are 107.8 days of operating expenditure, which is above the legally required 90-day minimum threshold. We expect this to continue for the balance of this year, Madam Speaker, and into the future. Madam Speaker, in conclusion, now, as I promised, those are the numbers. The forecasts, projections, and analyses are all laid out in black and white. But as I said earlier, leadership is to learn to look beyond the numbers and to see precisely how those numbers translate into benefits for the people. This government, Madam Speaker, believes that there is a gap that we must continue to chip away at, a gap between the success of the economy and the quality of life for our people, and we will continue those efforts. We will seek to understand and shrink this divide as we started to do from the very beginning of our term. We'll continue this effort through improved data collection mechanisms, especially on issues that impact directly the quality of life of our people. Madam Speaker, the 2021 census was key in this regard, and the results have informed the policies and programs that execute the aims of our strategic policy statement. The census information will continue to be our data touchstone as we move forward, improving the lives of our people and determining new qualitative methods and metrics of measuring the improvement in their lives, and not just relying on quantitative metrics as is historically done. Madam Speaker, this government believes that while those traditional metrics still have a purpose, they have value, no question about it, but they need to be enhanced, they need to be supplemented by other qualitative metrics that are better, more indicative, more instructive way of measuring the quality of life. As many are aware, population trends and quality of life indicators are very important when planning new programs and initiatives, as well as evaluating ongoing programs, existing and ongoing programs. I've always believed, Madam Speaker, especially in smaller jurisdictions, that timely, accurate, relevant data in sufficient detail absolutely helps government and government services to make better decisions and deliver those services better. Better data allows the government to implement better plans, implement new services, to better manage and calibrate the existing services, and to properly allocate resources, both financial and human. Data and information can help us forecast, plan, and be better prepared. For example, it can help us determine how many students we have, what are their ages, how many classrooms will be needed, and when, as well as where, we will have to put the increasing number of teachers, assistant teachers, and administrative staff that may be required. Indeed, Madam Speaker, data helps government forecast key health indicators, including the number of doctors and nurses that will be needed to care for the future growing population of the country and increasing needs. Madam Speaker, a rapidly growing population such as ours has tangible consequences for the government's ability to plan and prepare for the future. As I said, while this rapid population growth was not by design, it was not forecasted, it was not anticipated to that extent anyway, we are certainly nevertheless working steadily to improve our infrastructure roads, transportation network, yes, public transport, alleviating the resulting traffic concerns, and ensuring that public service mechanisms such as health, education, and safety are strengthened and expanded to meet these increasing demands. Madam Speaker, this is one of the key reasons why we need to be both strategic, prudent, and far-sighted in our budget allocations going forward. As this is the only way to ensure that all Caymanians and residents continue to have a good quality of life within our shores. Madam Speaker, as Premier, Minister for Finance and Economic Development, as well as Minister for Sustainability and Climate Resiliency, my overriding mission is to ensure that we foster an economy that is private sector driven, where all of our people have access to opportunities that will allow them to develop their full potential, live their best lives that they envision for themselves and their families in environments which foster improvements in their mental health and their enjoyment of life. Madam Speaker, with the national economy growing stronger, we intend to continue to prudently share this growth with Caymanians in the form of tangible, measurable results that add value to kitchen tables and bank accounts of the people of this country. Just to remind members, Madam Speaker, at this, what I regard to be an appropriate time, of the outlined 5 broad outcomes that we included in our strategic policy statement for 2024 to 2026, all aimed at benefiting, developing, and enriching the lives of the people of the Cayman Islands. They were, firstly, Madam Speaker, improve quality of life for Caymanians. Secondly, enhance competitiveness whilst continuing to meet international standards. Thirdly, future-proofing to increase resiliency. Fourth, modernizing government to improve public sector performance and the delivery of services in the most efficient manner. Fifth, protect and promote our Caymanian culture, heritage, and identity. Madam Speaker, every one of these goals has both quantitative and qualitative measurements. Each one is aimed at improving both the economy and the quality of life of our people and families. One does not have to happen, Madam Speaker, at the expense of the other. We can do both. We must do both, is the reality. The numbers that I've outlined earlier, those standard economic and accounting measures, prove that achieving a better quality of life for more of our people can be done in a responsible, prudent, and sustainable way. Madam Speaker, this government is committed to continuing the quality of life, to improve the quality of life for our people, building our country, creating a strong and diverse economy, whilst also protecting our natural environment, respecting and promoting our culture, our heritage, our Caymanian identity. Real progress, Madam Speaker, cannot be measured by money alone. This government understands that. That is why every day we dedicate ourselves to looking beyond the numbers, beyond the balance sheets, beyond income statements, straight to the hearts, needs, and hopes of our people, Madam Speaker. This is a true measure of success in any government enterprise, tracking how the lives of our citizens are improved. Madam Speaker, this government has accomplished much in the first half of this administration, but there is a lot more work to be done. Beyond the jargon, the footnotes, the appendices, beyond the terms of trade, beyond the money and addendums, Madam Speaker, there is a beating heart of a caring government ready to reach for excellence and continue to achieve excellence on behalf of its people. Because this is why we do all of this, Madam Speaker. This is why we're meeting in this Honourable House today, for the people. We are here because of them. We're all here because of them. But Madam Speaker, this government heard the people's call. in 21, and we hear that call still ringing in our ears today. And I ask the members of this honourable House to join me, to join us. We all work together. Let us continue to hear the people's call and continue to work together for the people of our three beloved Cayman Islands. Madam Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity, and I thank honourable members of this House for their attention.
Honourable members, we will now take this time for our lunch hour. I also want to remind all of those members for the Parliamentary Management Council that we will be having a meeting during the lunch break. So we'll do an extra 30 minutes so that members can eat, and then an hour for the meeting. So that would take us to 2:20. So we'll resume at 2:20.